Hello, welcome back. In this segment, I will introduce you to the world of digital signature using RSA. I will take the original research paper published by RSA authors and show you the core idea. Over time, people found some vulnerabilities. So the way I described today is not exactly the way it's used. Nevertheless, it's interesting to know how digital signature was constructed using RSA. This is the original paper that we talked about some time ago, a method for obtaining digital signatures on public key crypto systems. And the core idea is that you have encryption key and decryption key, right? The sender and receiver can communicate. The only prerequisite is that you will need to know the public key of the recipient. Suppose you would like to send a message, you need the public key of the recipient. That's the only prerequisite. So they have used notations D and E for decryption and encryption procedures respectively. Procedure for them is a method and the encryption key. The method is public, the encryption key is public, but the decryption key is private, of course. Okay, so that's the basic public key crypto system setup that we talked about earlier. ABC is not anything new, so I will skip that in terms of discussion. D is an interesting property. So the equation number 2 is interesting. Let's see, for digital signature. We take the message we would like to sign. We call the decryption procedure, right? Remember, whenever we call decryption procedure, we need to use the private key. So essentially, we sign a message using the private key. So if I am, say, Bob, I would like to send a message to Alice, I will use my private key to sign a message. That's basically the D of M part. And how will Alice recover whatever I signed? She will apply encryption procedure using my public key. That's the core idea of the equation number 2. Okay, I will show you more visually here. We have Bob on the left-hand side, Alice on the right-hand side. This is how the paper uses Bob and Alice, so I'm also trying to be consistent. Okay, the goal is for Bob to send a message to Alice and to convince Alice that it is coming from Bob. That is the basic goal. Okay, so what will Bob do? Bob will, of course, have to generate public and private key pairs and keep the private key private. Of course, this should not be leaked, this part. And similarly, Alice will also generate her own public and private key pairs. Okay, and again, this is private and this is public. All right. How will Bob sign a message? Bob will take a message M, which is a number essentially below the modulus RSA modulus N, and applies the decryption algorithm using his private key. See here, B means Bob. So Bob applies the decryption algorithm on a message M to obtain digital signature yes. Okay, he will not send yes directly to Alice because anybody who's monitoring the traffic can take yes, right, and applies EB because EB is public. EB of S will reveal M. If M is supposed to be secret, we don't want to do that. We don't want to send yes directly to Alice over the wire. This is not good in general. Okay, if M is confidential, we don't want to do that. If M is non-confidential, that's okay. So maybe you have binary that is published online. It's not important that M is secret, but it is important that M is not tampered. Then it's fine to send a yes in clear text. But we are not going to send yes in clear text. Okay, what are we going to do next then? We will encrypt, Bob will encrypt the signature using Alice's public key. Okay, so only Alice can decrypt it, say, right? So Alice gets the incoming ciphertext. Alice applies the decryption procedure using her private key, right? You see here DA. DA stands for the private key of Alice. She applies C to it. C is basically using Alice's public key. Therefore, Alice can decrypt it using her private key. And when she applies a private key decryption on the incoming ciphertext, she will get the input yes. Okay, this is the yes that was sent by Bob. Okay, so she got the yes, but her goal is to take the M, of course. So how will she do that? Remember, yes is produced using the private key of Bob. Therefore, we need to apply the public key of Bob. That's the reason why she does EB of yes. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now she will recover M just because of this property. If D is the general decryption algorithm, E is the encryption algorithm. Of course, you encrypt using the public key, you decrypt using the private key. These two equations are true for RSA. Okay, that we proved it earlier in one of the previous segments anyway, so I'm not going to prove again, but you can recall that encryption of M is M power E mod N. N and E are public parameters. In the case of encrypting the signature yes, we will use EA and NA. That's basically the parameters of Alice. In the case of decryption, depending on who is decrypting what, right? If Bob is decrypting, he will be using B. That means EL will be DB, the private key of Bob, public modulus of Bob. Okay, so that's basically it. This is how the digital signature is constructed. So now there is some caveat I need to explain to you. When the paper was published, there was no notion of randomness built inside the digital signature. If Bob is sending the same message to Alice tomorrow, it will be the same yes and the same C. Okay. In modern versions of cryptography, probabilistic encryptions or randomized encryptions are introduced. So a digital signature will also change, even if the message is the same. That's one drawback. But the more interesting drawback is that if C is modified, let's say I'm Eve, I modify C, Alice will not detect that. So Alice will decrypt using her private key of C, modified C. So she will get a modified yes, which means when she encrypts the modified yes, she will get a modified M. So the M comma yes that she gets may be different from what was sent by Bob. So that's not detected automatically here. Okay, that's because we don't have a notion of integrity checks built inside. So we have to assume, as the way I described, that C and S are not, well, in particular, only C is sent over the public channel. C is not tampered. Okay, otherwise it's easy to compromise this system. Okay, so that's basically it, and I will quickly show you the Python implementation of this idea to summarize this discussion. Okay, so what I've done is just basically put together a simple demo of this idea, right? Bob generates public private key pairs. That's everything that has the suffix B denotes Bob. Okay, it's NB is the public modulus, and E is same. You know, it's 65,537. So this is EB and EA. They are both the same anyway. This is Alice's public modulus and her private parameters. Okay, and this is DB is Bob's private key, DA is Alice's private key. For demo purpose, let Bob sign a random message. So he randomly selects a message from the group and bounded by his modulus NB. And then he applies a decryption algorithm on the message N, and he decrypts it using DB. DB means the private key, right? And this is the modulus, RSA modulus. And then he takes the signature yes. He encrypts the signature using Alice's public key. Okay, so that's the reason why you see here NA. NA is Alice's public key. And Alice decrypts using her private key, right, to recover the signature yes. That's called, I call it S actual. And then I show whether, and then the one more thing we need to do is encrypt the S actual using Bob's public key. Otherwise, we will not, Alice will not be able to recover M, and she gets the M actual. Okay, for demo purpose, I do an assert statement to compare that the S actual is same as the signature sent by Bob, and M actual is same as the message sent by Bob. Okay, this is not possible to assert in the real world because how would Alice know M and S? You know, she only knows M and S from whatever she received from over the wire, right? C is the only thing Bob sends over the wire. Okay, that's basically it. Just remember that signature is associated with the message, right? Yes is a function of message. So you can't take the same signature and say, oh, this message was sent by Bob. Signature and message are coupled. That's important. One more thing is that if the message is same, signature is also going to be same. So that's not good. That's a limitation, but you know, it's a great idea. So of course, you can't have every problem solved in the very first publication. So a lot of problems are not solved in the original publication, but they laid out the foundation for digital signature. Okay, that's basically it. Thank you very much.